Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. I'm Kirk Henderson, joined as always by Josh Bowe. We are editors over at MavsMoneyball.com as well. Josh, how are you?
Doing pretty good. How are you doing today?
I'm okay. So I normally don't start off the show this way, but I was sent something by our people at Blue Wire, and they asked me to read it right off the top of the bat, and I'm going to go ahead and do that if you guys don't mind. If any of you guys are interested in an extra $500, I really recommend you go to bluewire.com/survey and complete this Blue Wire audience survey that answers some questions about you and your listening habits, and it gives you a chance at a $500 gift card. These sort of surveys actually help create better advertising audience experiences, which also helps this show, which means it gives us an opportunity to make a little more money. That's bluewire.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer some simple questions for a chance at $500. Make sure to read the full terms disclaimer plus the survey, or plus complete the entire survey for a chance to win. That's bluewire.com/survey. The link is also in the show notes for the podcast and for the YouTube video. Josh, how's your Tuesday treating you?
Oh, it's okay. It's about what I can expect for the end of August. Holy crap, I can't believe the start of September is next week, which like, right. Labor Day weekend kind of snuck up. For those of you that don't know, my real job like really picks up pretty much like now till Christmas. So like
Josh does this thing where he's like, guys, I can't do much tonight because I have to do the real job.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Well, on the Mavs front, things are a little bit slow, so we'll see what kind of chicken salad we can make out of the chicken shit that exists on the internet. First, I think we should sort of start with, I know you and I missed it, but I caught clips later, and I really enjoyed Matt Martinez's coverage of the Goran Dragic sort of farewell game. There were a lot of people there. And look, if you didn't know what to expect, you probably were a little bit frustrated because it's not like it had much more of a feel like the NBA All-Star game, at least the way the All-Star game's been lately. And it was like long introductions. People say, all sorts of folks showing up. The night before there was a charity dinner. It was just fun. And it's so rare. Like we spend so much time in sports, like sort of more or less criticizing, overanalyzing, not really having fun in the moment. And it was really great to be able to watch longtime fans and fellow peers of Dragic being able to celebrate him in a real way. And I just think that's just fun. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's good to see, especially like the names that they got together. Dirk was there, Steve Nash was there, Chris Bosh was there. Like you don't see
Boban for a 3-pointer. That was my. Sorry, I was just scrolling through and I forgot about that one.
Because like Dirk and Nash and Bosh aren't. They're not on ESPN. They're not on TNT. They're not. I don't know if any of those. I know Dirk and Nash. I don't know if Bosh has like a pot. Like you just don't hear from those guys very often. They're not in the media game as much as some other former players from their era. So it was just good to see like some of those players. Like that was just cool. Like Dragic. I mean, I think he made the All-Star team. Did he just make it once? Like if you think about it, like he's not like NBA wise. He had a very good career, but he wasn't like a all NBA player, but obviously he made an impact on his peers and his teammates and obviously his countrymen, being probably right now the greatest. He's, until Luka takes his mantle as the greatest Slovenian player, maybe Luka's already that, but he basically held that title for a long time, if not right now. So it was just cool, just good to celebrate like good things today when you think about.
Hold on one second. What's that, Parker? What?
Oh, you're good.
Escaped what? The house?
Yeah. You left the door open.
No, there was no door leaving open. So does mom need my help?
No, but
I apparently left the front door open and I need to go get the dogs. Can you filibuster
Yeah,
for
let
a
me
little bit and
filibuster
talk?
for a little
That's
bit.
so embarrassing. I'll
No,
be
no,
right
you're
back,
okay.
guys.
You're okay. This is August podcasting. Yeah, what I was saying, I thought the event was pretty cool, even if Dragic isn't like a huge NBA player. So yeah, that was pretty fun. I don't know if we want to go into the news. I mean, there's not that much news out there. I was wondering if we wanted to wait for Kirk to get back for news. But I would do a quick shout out to our friends over at DLLS. Not to promote, another podcast while I'm on a podcast, but just congrats to those guys, Tim Cato, Bobby Caralla, Kevin Gray, for being able to start their project this week. Obviously, we are close with those guys, friends. We've, at least Tim and Bobby, for me personally, like, we go back a long time. Kevin's been a friend of the show for a while. All those are really good dudes. So appreciate what they're doing over there at the new DLLS.com and what their outfit's going to do. It'll be exciting to have another new Mavs platform out there and with our media friends. So good luck to them. I'm just gonna hop into some user questions, and then when Kirk gets back, I think there's like a couple of news things we can talk about. But one of them was from Jordan Ennis at JNS NBA Draft, who's been a longtime follower of myself and Kirk, self-proclaimed NBA draft nerd. Always appreciate his comments about the show and our articles. He asked who is more likely to be an all-star this year, Klay Thompson or Derek Lively? And that's a good one. I Off the top of my head, I'm gonna lean, since now the way the NBA does all star teams and big men, especially like with all NBA. I can't remember if the NBA requires a center. I think it's just front court, which makes it a lot harder for pure centers. I think because front court, small, so many forwards, so many talented forwards in both the Eastern and Western Conference. It's really hard for centers to make the All Star team now with the way that that's situated. So I'm going to say Klay because he's just got a little bit more name recognition in terms of votes. So he might be able to be voted in, even if not. And then his season, he just might put up better counting stats, which can help. Like if he's averaging 20 or so points per game, if he's close to the league lead in 3-point shooting, which he very well could with how many open shots Luka Doncic is going to be getting him, I think the path is just easier. Even if you wanted to ask who is going to impact winning more next season, I might say Derek Lively because I think there's a legitimate case. I mean, he was so great his rookie season. I feel like the ceiling is kind of off for a second. Like you could tell me anything now. Like before his rookie season, I would have been happy if he just averaged 15 to 20 minutes a game, played a little bit, got his feet wet, made some contributions, and there you go. And he ended up being maybe a top 3 important player on the roster last year. And up until the NBA Finals was maybe the second most important player at times, with Luka struggles. And then sometimes Kyrie, like when those two were struggling a little bit in the playoffs, like he was pretty much their foundation, their rock in the first 3 rounds of the Western Conference playoffs in terms of impacting winning. So I would maybe pick Lively as maybe contributing more to winning, not to take away anything from Klay. He's going to help a lot. But in terms of the All-Star, I think it's just easier for a guy like Klay to make the All-Star team. And I just think there's too many front court players for Lively to have to hop over, even if Lively could have a really tremendous season. So that's an interesting question. I appreciate it, Jordan Ennis. Thanks for following the show. Next question from Sam at Samitsky. I don't think we talked about this last podcast. This is an interesting question. Do you foresee there being any awkwardness settling the big man rotation? It seems too insane to suggest Lively wouldn't start, but I wonder if there will be a negative impact on Gafford if he's put on the bench. I think that's a good question to call out because I think a lot of people just sort of assume these things can work. Like they think starting and coming off the bench doesn't matter as long as you're finishing games. And we kind of just look at on-court impact and we just assume these guys are just interchangeable in that way, and like, oh, it does, starting and coming off the bench doesn't matter as long as you're playing 30 minutes a night, you're finishing games, who cares if you start? Well, like, these guys care about starting. Oh, hello, Kirk. You just got back. I'm just in the middle of it. I did reader questions while you were gone. So we're just getting, I was doing a question from at Sam Samitsky. Sam, he said, do you foresee there being any awkwardness settling the big man rotation? Seems insane to suggest Lively wouldn't start, but I wonder if there will be a negative impact on Gafford if he's put on the bench. What I was saying when you hop back in is, I think a lot of us online sometimes like to assume that starting and coming off the bench doesn't matter as long as you're playing a lot of minutes. But like, these guys are humans and they matter. Like, NBA players definitely do care about this stuff. So I understand the question, but to me, my quick answer would be, I don't think it'll be a big deal, because I think Gafford was traded into a situation I think he kind of knew. He came off the bench the first few weeks, and they did switch him to starting to change things up when they were struggling. But I think with how Lively performed in the playoffs, Lively's pedigree, and the fact that, Gafford didn't come here necessarily to be a starter, like even when you were talking about the trade, like his press conference, I think it was assumed that Lively was still going to be the starter. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. And once again, we've talked about before, that's like the one thing we both trust Jason Kidd to navigate is the locker room stuff. So I don't know what you thought.
Right.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to know how my dogs are doing.
Yeah. Are you okay?
Yeah. I mean, so what happens? So what happens is we have, like, we live in like a 30, 35-year-old house, and the front door is probably the same door it's always been there. And when it's not locked, and if it's not latched properly, like Ari, if you shut a door like upstairs, the change in air pressure will open up the downstairs door. And so I'm pretty sure what happened was I came up here to podcast, closed the door, front door then blows open. Then older dog, who it just probably like saunters over and looks out, younger idiot dog sprints out the door. And so then he runs after her. And then they both get about 3 houses down and like, fuck, what do we do? And they're both, I don't know, you've seen my dogs, but people who aren't dog people, like Lila is a 50-pound pig. Huck is a 100-pound animal, or lab American Bulldog mix. Like, they look a little bit much when they're running, is what I'll just say. So
I got back pretty fast. So did they get far? Like,
I had an idea of where because this is not the first time this has happened. My wife proceeded to light me on fire for about 5 minutes. So
at least they listen. When our little lab Cocker Spaniel mix gets outside, he's not coming back. Like, it's an all day ordeal. I have to get treats. I have to corner him like near fences and in driveways, because he'll sneak all the way back into other people's backyards, and I have to like corner him.
I mean, all right. Well, I want to circle back to the Q&A, because I think your answer there is good. I think that if you're really looking long term, the contract stuff does probably start to matter, and the Mavericks eventually will have to make choices, but they don't have to make those choices yet. All right, the other pieces of news that I wanted to kind of touch on, and then I do want to do the Q&A. This is just it's the perfect time of year for NBA 2K to do this. They released their rankings for the game that's coming out soon. Luka Doncic gets rated 97 overall, along with Jokic and Giannis, who are also 97s. But in terms of the subcategories, the way it ends up balancing out, Luka is the second rated player in the game, ahead of Giannis, behind Jokic. And I think that's about right. I haven't played one of these games more than to kind of, like play with someone, but I can't do it anymore. The Sims make me too angry. I used to really like them, but they just make me too angry, and it doesn't really feel like basketball. Football, like when you play the football games, they've really kind of cracked that nut. But the basketball stuff, they still do things where it's like all of a sudden your rookie big man just can't score an open layup, and it's like, no, that's not come on. It doesn't really do it for me. But it's people love this game. I mean, I would argue that there's probably a significant portion of the basketball fan base that gets more of their basketball from 2K than from actual NBA level basketball. So you can't ignore it. The Mavericks ended up having 5 guys in the top 100, which I found particularly interesting.
Lord, that's got to be the first time in forever. So it was Kyrie was ranked 16th, which was very interesting to me. But then I started kind of thinking about which attributes
the game probably over like weights in a particular way. So you got your handles, your finishing ability, and your shooting, and like of course Kyrie's going to be high if that's
he's probably a nightmare in video game land. I mean, he's a nightmare in the real. I mean, on the real floor.
Then there's Clay, and then our aforementioned two big men rounded out the top 100, which was, I don't know, it's just kind of a cool thing. It goes to kind of show what we've talked about for a while now, that the Mavericks are a team that is well regarded after that finals run. I think there's a lot of fan bases that'll talk trash and say it was a little bit fluky, but I just no, the Mavericks are good. The end.
Yes, for sure. Well said.
Oh, what else did we have out there? Because there were some other things.
You want to do the Luka Jordan brand?
Oh yeah, that was pretty fun. So Luka's going to join Brand Jordan athletes on a tour of China, and one of our new writers, Tyler. You guys have seen Tyler in here. He used to join the various post game shows that we had. Hopefully, he'll be back in here again. But he's joining this tour that's going to feature Tatum, Zion Williamson, and Paolo Banchero, and they're visiting like Shanghai and Beijing. And it's, if Brand Jordan, I know is affiliated with Nike, but it's a different, like I think it's this different, distinct company. Like I don't know about the legalese element of it, but it's interesting. And I, for one, just like when Luka gets to do things with other NBA athletes. Like he's never, when he plays on the national team for Slovenia, the likelihood that he plays with another player that's approaching his level is just not there. Like it's too hard to do. Dragic was probably going to be the last one. That's not to say there won't be other NBA players from Slovenia while Luka's playing, but we're talking like top 50-ish guys in the league. So it's just, I like that Luka gets a chance to do that. It's not like, Luka never has struck me as a recruitment kind of guy, but at the same time, I don't know. It strikes me as fun, and particularly getting to go to China is probably really good for Luka as a whole. Chinese basketball fans, if you see how they've responded to James Harden and then Kobe Bryant before him, like those folks are loyal customers. So it's interesting to me.
Yeah. And so let's see if we're putting on our tinfoil hats. So if you look at the names, Tatum, it's Luka with Tatum, Zion, and Paolo Banchero. One of those, like, obviously he is not going to be recruiting Tatum. Banchero is probably way too young.
Mm-hmm.
One of those names sticks out. Zion.
All right, do you remember how nuts we were getting whenever we thought the Mavericks might have a chance to, because they were one lottery pick away from being in the top, like one combination away from being in the top of that. What was it? The 2019 draft?
Yeah, it was either that was where it was either going to go to. Mm-hmm. That pick was either going to stay or go to Atlanta, or was it? Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
So that would have been interesting.
There was something today. I need to go. NBA.com might have had it, and I don't think we had time to review it. So maybe we'll review it next week. But there's the GM, like one of those GM surveys has come out relatively over the last, because they were talking about it on the Hoop Collective podcast, but maybe that was an internal ESPN thing that I haven't looked at. But, it's just kind of safe to say as we get closer to the season, the Mavericks will start to get a lot more scrutiny. We'll hear a lot more. We'll just hear more.
It was an ESPN one, and it's Tim Bontemps. It's on ESPN Plus. I got the link, but I don't have
ESPN Plus anymore. I should have it. I mean, all this stuff is like a tax
write-off. Oh, wait, it looks like the stuff is free. I mean, do you want to just look at it next week so we're not reading a website?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably for the best. The way teams are viewed is ultimately meaningless, but as I was who did I do this with? I was with someone the other day, and I was like, the way fans want one of two things. We either like to complain that our team is not being talked about enough, or by like people who aren't Mavs people, so national media, etc. Or we like to complain that the teams or national media are talking about the Mavs, but they're not talking about the Mavs correctly.
Right. All right. That's why what I've been saying I feel like forever, where it's like, be careful what you wish for, because usually when national people do talk about your team, it's some of the most infuriating stuff that you'll ever hear about your basketball team.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's really something. So I did a podcast yesterday, I think it was, Hardwood Knocks podcast, probably not coming out for a week or two. But did you know the Mavericks' current over-under is sitting at 49.5?
Really?
That seems ridiculous.
Like low? That feels low.
Like they won 50 games last year.
and they're better.
They're better.
It must be hedging against like there's at least like 5 or 6 teams in the West that could win 50 games. So that's probably more of it. I would have to see what the other ones are. Like, is Minnesota predicted? Is there over under set at like
so the Thunders were
was
it like either 54 or 56, which seems right to me because the Thunder are going to be the pace setters. Yeah. So it's I don't know. It's
are the Mavericks 5 games worse than the Thunder right now?
Yeah, maybe.
Interesting question.
I sort of think the Thunder are going to be very similar to the 2006, 2007 Mavericks, where they just pace out a ton of wins, but I don't know if they have another gear to get to.
Like they're just going to be an elite regular season team, and you're not sure about the playoffs just yet.
Right, because I think that's not an insight. It's like once you play at a really high level for a really long time, and I think Jason Kidd knows this better than anyone. If you play at a really high level, there starts to be a question of like, what higher level can you play at? Do you know what I mean?
Like peaking too early. I see what you mean. I mean, they still have, their roster's great, but there's going to be like the stuff that killed them in the playoffs against the Mavericks. Like Hartenstein helps a little bit with some of the stuff, but like they needed, they very much relied on a bunch of players that were hitting shots in the regular season that did not hit shots in that playoff in that second round. And Caruso helps a little bit, but like they're gonna need like their Dortz and Jalen Williams, like the wing Jalen Williams, to take some leaps in terms of like offensive creativity and being able to drive and stuff like that. Because otherwise, their team kind of is built the same. Like they got better players. Like Hartenstein is better than what they were playing at center outside of Chet if they wanted to play center next to Chet, and Caruso is better than Josh Giddey, but they still haven't really addressed too much what killed them against the Mavericks in terms of their offense kind of died on a vine outside of Shea. So
so Sarah in the comments says on the DNVR pod today, they started talking about that the Mavericks were a flash in the pan team that would never make it back to the finals. The thing about Denver is I actually think Denver probably poses the hardest matchup past anyone other than Oklahoma City, because when you have Jokic, they're just a scary team, flat out. But I think, the Thunder might have patched the holes that the Mavericks exposed. I still don't give a shit about Minnesota. I just don't. Like, there was some on the Bontemp survey that I mentioned a second ago. Somebody put like Anthony Edwards is the best player in the league, and it's like, what? Who are you watching to where he is the best player in the league? Like, I just think that Luka, to a certain extent, has a reputation that, and we've talked about this. He has a reputation. People don't like him. He frustrates them, and it's like there's a little bit of a how do they keep doing this kind of thing with Luka. That I'm just going to be curious to see how it goes over the course of the year, because the Mavericks have, we talk about this. The Mavericks have potential to be really stinking good, just really, really good. And Brian says, I think Denver is much weaker without KCP in a way that can't overcome in the playoffs. I tend to agree with you. I do think that Michael Porter Jr. is like the X factor for that team, because if he's hitting shots, they just annihilate folks. But he's such a dork, and is just, his consistency is just not there. He was really bad in the playoffs last year. So but the playoffs are about matchups, and I think the Mavericks, the way they're built, are they're probably a tier behind Oklahoma City, just in terms of Oklahoma City just has a lot of really good players, but so do the Mavericks. I just need to see them play basketball before I can rank them ahead of Oklahoma. Do you know what I mean?
No, for sure. And with Denver, I mean, they are relying, like what they're relying on to replace KCP are a bunch of players that we don't, Christian Brown, yes, had that, that title run, but he was a bench guy. Like, what does that look like when he might be a starter? And I think Julian Strother and Peyton Watson, like there's a lot of questions that those guys have to answer in the playoffs before I think I'm confident in how Denver looks to try to make another title run. And I feel like with the Mavericks, like most of the players that you question like about their playoff performance are like guys that aren't probably going to be part of their closing five, like Quentin Grimes, Najee Marshall, etc.
Which really, though,
like,
if they're up by 15, they could roll out a closing lineup of all defensive monsters to just, and then say
Be
Luka,
like, you don't score
Kyrie.
anymore.
Yeah. Luka, Kyrie, you're going to be the one that takes the shot in the hero ball offense, but these other 4 guys are going to blot out the sun.
That's fair.
So I don't know. But this is what makes it fun. This is why I think this season should be a lot of fun from the get go. There's just a lot to talk about.
West is always good. It's it's maddening.
Well, do we like any other questions from last week? I think this one is fun. I don't know how I missed it. It was from longtime follower Dreamweaver. How many points per game do you think Luka will average this season? I don't remember how many averaged last season.
Did he get to 34 or was he at like 33.9?
Let's go. I'm going to go to Basketball Reference and take a look at this because I should have known this last year. Yeah, he was at 33.9.
There we go. I remembered.
God.
So I got something left in my brain.
What if I say he is not the league leader in average and tops out at about 29?
29?
5 points. I mean, he doesn't.
Lot.
Okay, 31.
Okay, that's fair.
3 point difference.
I'm just looking at 33.9 last year, 32 the year before. I don't know, maybe 29 would actually like. Is it funny that if it was 29, I would like bet like if you told me Luka right now, like if you had the crystal ball and I was like, hey, Luka's averaging 29 points per game this year, I would go bet the Mavericks to win 60 games this year.
And that's where my head is. That's where my head is because I think that they have to he and the Mavericks have to come to an agreement about some of his usage. He needs to be involved in off-ball actions where he doesn't have the ball. And the Mavericks need to give their other 2 playmakers more opportunity to score, to play make while on the floor with him. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. This
and
is
they made some. And they made some.
If he's averaging 29, it's because he's averaging 15 assists per game.
Yeah, probably. And I mean, this might be the best shooting team that Luka's had since, or maybe the best. It's either this one or maybe the 2020 bubble team before everyone got hurt with KP and Seth Curry. But even then, there were some holes. Like Dorian wasn't necessarily elite shooter, although he was pretty capable. But like Clay is going to be ridiculous. He's going to be ridiculous. But yeah, you're right. Like, because the next step for Luka and the Mavericks is they have to figure out a way to get him to the end of the regular season in one piece. And I don't think that happens with a 34, 35, 36, 37 usage.
One day you'll write on this. One day
I got to get this done. I'm going to get this done.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that makes sense.
Did you like any other of the questions from out and about?
What was one that I didn't get to? Oh yeah, if Clay, it's just a 2-parter from at ATL_Mavs, Nick on Twitter. Basically 2 questions. If Clay averaged 44 to 46% from 3 this year, would it shock you? Do you think Lively averages a double-double this year? And I think the Clay number, no, would not shock me at all because he was basically at 40 since the Achilles injury. So he's already about 40 at 10 attempts per game. Now he's playing with Luka. He should be getting the most open shots he's got in his career. And that's not even disrespecting like Steph Curry or what the Warriors did. He got a lot of open shots there as well. It's just different. Like the Luka gravity is just different. So that wouldn't shock me. And then Lively double-double is interesting. Will he get to 10 points? What do you think is easier for him, the 10 points or the 10 rebounds? Like, I'm really interested if he could get there. Does he play enough to get a double-double? Like, will he average enough minutes? Okay.
So, I mean, when you go through the thought exercise of how does a team defend the probable starting lineup for these Dallas Mavericks, I think you leave the one that gets left open the most is PJ Washington. PJ Washington is the player that the Mavericks are probably going to hope that he has found some shooting consistency.
Yeah.
And I actually think he might. But if he doesn't, Washington is also the guy who I think will have some better handles this year. He's a decent passer. He's a decent playmaker. I just think Lively's going to average. Like, I don't know how many dunks he averaged in like the last 20 games plus playoffs. But it's just, if you assume 2 lobs a game from Luka plus anybody else, you're already like, you're starting off at 4 points. Do you know what I mean? That's why it's like, Okay.
So do you think he gets the rebounds then? If the points, okay.
Yeah, the rebounds don't bother me because Luka comes and goes with his rebounding. Like, it's really incredible that he somehow ends up with like 9.2 or whatever he did on the season. But I think the rebounding is there. I really do.
What did he do? I'm curious. What did he do per 36? Lively last year was 13 and 10. So if he gets closer to 32 minutes per game, 30 minutes per game, he could get there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I don't think it would shock me.
Yeah. Well, we've already had the 30-minute podcast. I'll figure out where to insert ads. We're just kind of in the not like doldrums, but we want to keep up with the content. There's one last thing that I didn't even broach with you that I'd sort of like to talk about before we get on out of Dodge. We're going to bury it at the end of the podcast in the hopes that the only people who pay this close attention are the people who are truly kind of hardcore. But I sort of wanted to address it. So as we all know, if anybody that's on the internet, some of our friends joined a new website.
I mentioned this while you were running after your dogs.
Yeah, the All Cities Network has expanded to Dallas, DLLS.com. Our former boss and friend Tim Cato, our good friend Bobby Corella, our friend Kevin, and then occasionally, I don't know how often, Mark Stein will be joining them for their basketball coverage. I just sort of want, so I typed something out and I was like, Twitter's not for this. I was talking to my friend TGK earlier today, and I want to note a couple of things. So more jobs in media, I think, is broadly a good thing. Number two, Mike Fisher, DallasBasketball.com, who's given the site to Dalton, told me years and years ago. He said, Kirk, there's if you think of sports media coverage like a restaurant row, there's something for everybody. And there's always plenty of people to come try the restaurants. There's plenty of people to figure out, what sort of audience they cater to. And, I'll be honest. I mean, I was approached by Dallas DLLS to join their site, and then I was ghosted. And I don't really have a problem saying that. I was straight up ghosted after engaging in like some deep conversations. Pretty good idea of why I was ghosted, and it had nothing to do with my style of content, with what Josh and I do, and it had everything to do with name recognition, size, whatever. And at first, and for a significant portion of the last few weeks, since I know this coming, I was like quietly butthurt about it. I don't have any problem saying it out loud. And then the last few days have kind of come and gone, and I've seen some of my other friends in the creator space quasi upset. And when I saw other people upset, it made me sort of feel for them in the sense of, well, the idea comes, well, why didn't we get a chance at this? And when you're putting together these sorts of sites and they've got investors, they have things that they look for that have very little to do with content. I have no doubt that our friends that have joined will do a great job. I also happen to think that what we do here on our limited free time after our day jobs, after our families, is really good. Do we have top-notch production value? No.
Look at my background. My lighting. I look like I'm broadcasting from, I don't know, from a construction site.
Do we have insider sourcing? No. But I'll tell you what we do have. We have our opinions and we have our reasons for doing this. And a lot of why I wanted to do this years and years ago is, at first I wanted to be heard in the cacophony of Mavs media voices. I didn't particularly care for some of what was out there, and I wanted to be different. 10 years have gone by. Honestly, my intentions have changed to where I want to have fun. I want to enjoy creating stuff for the people that enjoy consuming it. I mean, one thing that's out there about me is like, there are a lot of people that really fucking hate me. It's so funny. Some of the tweets and things that I get sent to me are just like, like one random person accused us of stealing content today. And it's like, well, I suppose if we've gotten to the point to where we have legitimate haters, we must be doing something right in the sense that people have strong feelings about us.
No, once you get to the size of the audience that we're getting, you're gonna get people that don't like. You're gonna come across people that don't like.
Exactly right. You're exactly right. And so, while I was very frustrated for a period of weeks that we weren't being included, now that the time has come and gone to where they've started their thing, we have our thing, I'm really hopeful for them that they're able to produce something that works for them and the audience that they're catering. I'll probably be a part of that audience. I like those people. But in the meantime, in the spirit of healthy competition, we will continue to do what we can to create very good content and hope that people are interested in it. That's all. That's all. So, is that okay? Is that out of bounds?
No, you did good. I'm not going to lie. I got a little scared. My heartbeat started going up. I was like, oh, what's Kirk going to say about this? I mean, obviously we've been talking about this behind the scenes for a while. And, you know, like, I think you put that as rationally and reasonably as you could. Like, it's not fun to get, no one likes to get ghosted about stuff like that. And I mean, that's kind of what happened. And
no, there's so much good stuff out there. There's, you know, like Nick Angstad has busted his ass to build up the Locked On Mavericks podcast. You know, my friend TGK is doing his pregame show. He really loves doing it. He loves getting people from the community together. We Talk Mavs grinds their butts off for stuff. Okay. And they have like a subscriber community. They do all sorts of fun things. You know, Chris Henderson was out there talking about some of the stuff. There's the folks at Mavs Fans for Life, Landon Thomas. There's just all sorts of stuff out there. And if you want
outsiders, Bibs.
Yeah, Bibs. God, there's just so, and you know, and I tell people it's like there's always room for more, right? There's always room for more. Like if you want to go make something, don't make it because you want to be someone. Make it because you have something that you want to say. Okay? And like Josh and I laugh about this every July where we're like, should we quit? We're 40.
We have expired.
Said, thank you, Sam. God, what's wrong with me? Slightly biased, of course. Yeah. Like that man has carved an incredible a niche isn't even accurate. Like he just has his own zone that he floats in. There's just lots of people out there that do lots of good stuff. And you know, I saw a couple of comments where it's like, oh, great, it's the same old people doing the same old thing. Maybe. But you know what? There's an environment for all of it. And the last thing I will note is like every time I think about this maybe being a job, I think the moment it becomes a job is the moment I lose my edge. Because if you have to worry about it paying your bills, then you start to worry about the things that come out of your mouth, the things that you write down. This does, you know, obviously we've mentioned this. Josh and I make some money on the side from this, but it is not enough to be a
if this got finger Thanos snapped away from us, we'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, you know,
that's right. That's right.
Or like if a higher power came to us and was like, you cannot podcast anymore. And, but like, you know, I'll pay you $1 million to not podcast anymore. We might be like, oh, you know, I guess we don't need to podcast.
That's all.
You know,
I don't know. And it's like, I've been thinking about, and sort of what really changed my tune on this was I was thinking like, if this were a paid job for me, like it was my salaried position that helped provide food and shelter for my family, what feelings would I have had when Mark Cuban emailed me out of the blue and said, I need to come on your podcast? I've been like, oh no, I made that guy mad. Anyways, this is all fun. Competition is always good. Different stuff. Yeah.
Oh no, good. I was just, you know, especially, you know, Cato is obviously, he's been doing great with SB Nation and then us, SB Nation Athletic. So no surprise, but like, I do want, you know, for Bobby and Kevin, like that's very well deserved. Like
couldn't be happier for Bobby because Bobby worked for the team and had to give. Hey, Kevin,
he gave up. He sacrificed a lot. Bobby did
his sanity, and now he gets in. You know, when you work for a team, there's only certain things you can say. I cannot
or even do. Like he just didn't. Yes. You know, there were opportunities that I feel like I was like, why isn't he on the site more? Like there was just stuff like that I wish.
And we get to hear unvarnished Bobby. And for those who don't know, Bobby is. I put Bobby up there with Tim and Josh in terms of instant game analysis stuff. So I'm
He's a
really
smart
looking
one.
forward
And
to
then
seeing what he
Kevin,
can
I
do.
know, has been grinding.
Kevin's in the chat. Kevin
There
Gray
he is.
Sports. What's up,
Hey,
buddy?
Kevin. And I know, Kevin, I know from experience, the road you have been on is not fun. I did sports, I did journalism in college. I was the editor of our student paper. I did internships. I did freelance. I got a newspaper job that paid $27K at a college. I know that the road to get somewhere where you feel like making a full-time living doing sports media is difficult, and the paths are hard, and you get told no way more than you get told yes. So Kevin, I'm especially happy for you to get this get this opportunity, because I know you have been grinding, and I'm sure there have been plenty of moments in your career where you could have been like, you know what, I could do something else. And that's because guess what? That's what I did.
I could. I have to.
Yeah, I bowed out. I was not tough enough to stay in it. So I know that road is not fun to travel at times. So
just because this is insider.
We're not talking inside baseball.
No, but this is like the Cowboys side. The first day the site launches is the day CeeDee Lamb.
Collusion.
Lamb. Yeah. Talk about
and Jerry Jones pocket.
Yeah. My God. Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to hit on here. No. I am looking forward to the fall is what this heat is just cooking me.
And this has been one of our cooler summers. I mean, this is better than last year, wasn't it? I mean, didn't we have 30 straight days of 100 degrees?
It was the worst it had been since I was in high school.
1980. Yeah. Something crazy.
Okay, well, Josh and I will be back next week. We brought on 9 new people to the website this week.
I see their names floating around.
Yes, a lot of 4 of them aren't on Twitter, which was actually part of what made their things stand out. I had a gajillion people apply. Cannot express my appreciation for those people enough. It was very hard. I am not like my man Cowboy applied. He was one of our finalists, and it was really hard. But you know what, guys, I will say some of the folks that, we bring them on and people find, my favorite is our guy Matthew, who he used to write so much for us. And then it's not that he ran out of things to say, but he's like, you know what? He realized that he was a little in too deep in his fandom. it allowed him to sort of pull. So we really do have people that wax in and out. Like Xavier is kind of taking a leave from the site, for example. It's we have positions open, and I keep those names on file, and I will probably revisit some during the course of the season. But we'll have some new names, some new thinking. I really like bringing new people on because it re-engages the heart of why I started doing this to begin with. And I know Mike Palucci and some of the other Dallas people in the area are actually grateful for me, because Mavs Moneyball has basically become the only entry-level area for anyone in the Dallas sports media market to write about basketball. So we're here.
Yeah.
We're
the farm system.
Fucking farm team. Yeah. At least trade us some prospects back, guys, when you take things from us. All right, everyone, I want you to have a great week. We will talk with you guys probably, if we're not back on Tuesday, because it's right after Labor Day, we'll be back on Wednesday. We'll do something.
Yeah, we'll be here.
Anything else, Josh?
No, I think that's it.
All right.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone joining on almost 400 of you. I know that doesn't sound like a lot in the grand scheme of things, but on freaking August 27th, we appreciate it. There were 5. Yeah, I don't even care if there were 5 of you. I'd be like, that's too many sickos.
That's right.
There. So I appreciate everyone.
Everybody be good. Have a great rest of your week, and go Mavs.